This is how the real Natty Crew does it.
Alright, so we're headed to the P.O. box to pick up my steroids. The safest way to travel is mail yourself your gear. Just overnight it yourself. Don't try to get on a plane and get caught up like Sylvester Stallone. You want to get at the P.O. box. Just lunch, breakfast, snacks, little HGH. Can't leave home without treats, guys.
All right, so we're going to talk about nutrition compared from a bodybuilder standpoint to somebody who's always trying to stay lean and hard year round. Well, this time around, since I'm no longer competing, I'm going to try to stay a lot leaner. But I'm going to talk about my nutrition-wise. If I'm like trying to grow, you know, I'm going to obviously put a little bit of water on. But the whole point is, you know, lifting heavy weight, putting on lean tissue. My diet consists of, you know, in the morning, I always start off with eggs. I always start off with egg, you know, an egg meal usually, like 6 whole eggs and a cup of whites, and then like a half cup of oatmeal uncooked. And then 2 to 3 hours later, depending on how I feel, I'll either have a shake with peanut butter, a whey isolate shake, or I'll eat like red meat, you know, and like some olive oil, extra virgin olive oil. If personally for me, if I have carbs with every meal, I'll get bloated, and then I won't be able to eat all my meals. I won't be able to get all my nutrients in. So, saying that, I like to keep my carbs around my workouts. So I'll do morning carbs, pre-workout carbs, depending on, you know, if it's a weak body part, I'll even do an intra-carb shake with some insulin, and then I'll do post-workout carbs. And then other than that, I'll fill it out. If I feel like I could, you know, handle more carbs, if I had a really intense workout, my next will be carbs. But I'll always cut my carbs out before bed. And usually I do 2 egg meals. I'll do an egg meal in the morning, egg meal at night with maybe a little bit of casein, and then throughout the day I'll either do a whey isolate shake. I always do 40 grams of whey isolate post, and I eat another hour after that, about usually like steak and white rice. Now, the thing that people don't really realize is how important healthy fats are in a diet. When I, you know, back when I was 17, 18, I never really had any fats in my diet, and I never really grew. And people don't understand, for even natural bodybuilders, you know, how good it is for, you know, the hormones in our body. You feel much better. And when I'm talking about healthy fats, I'm talking about, you know, not non-saturated fats like macadamia nut oil, you know, all extra virgin olive oil, you know, your nuts, all those good sources. Even eggs are, you know, very good source of fats. You know, a lot of people worry about cholesterol, unless it's, you know, genetically in your family, where you know, your family has high cholesterol, you will be perfectly fine. So that's basically my nutrition, guys. I keep it simple. I'll either do chicken, lean ground turkey, tuna, or fish for my lean protein. For my healthy fats, I'll stick with mac oil, nuts, whole eggs, peanut butter, nut butters, cashew butter, all natural, obviously. And then for, you know, I'll do 1 or 2 steak meals a day. Usually I do 1 because 2 steak meals kind of, you know, fucks with my digestion a little bit. So usually 1 steak meal, which is post-workout after my shake, and I always stick with a whey isolate shake, you know, after. And then when I'm in off-season, I go by feel, guys. Like when I don't have a show in mind, if I'm bloated after 6 meals, I'll cut it short. You know, if I can eat another meal, I'll go to 7.
Well, me personally, I don't really have an off-season. I don't bodybuild, so I try to keep the aesthetic look as much as I can year-round. What works best for me, it might not work best for everybody. For me, is super, super low carbs with high fats. Usually, my breakfast is similar. Actually, all my meals are pretty similar to this. Breakfast is usually 2 cups of egg whites, and I'll have 1 packet of plain oatmeal with a scoop of all-natural peanut butter in it. Probably about an hour and a half to 2 hours after that, I'll either do like chicken and maybe like a half a cup of brown rice. I usually only do carbs around pre-workout and post-workout, and then if I'm really hungry at night, I'll add another carb. My fats usually are like moderate, but since I started talking to Boston, I actually been raising my fats, and I feel like it's starting to make a little bit of a change in my body, so I think I really needed to incorporate more high fats, because like you said, it is really important, and I was kind of neglecting it a little bit. I'll do a shake. Post-workout usually. I usually don't put carbs in my shake. I'll usually do a post-workout shake, and then I'll just get, when I get back to my house, I'll usually have like a carb with the food. Like I'll get my carb from the meal usually. That's pretty much it. I just try to keep it low carb. I do cardio, usually fasted cardio 3 days a week, and no, 5 days a week, 3 days a week in the morning, and 2 days a week post-workout I do cardio. I just try to keep, I mean, bodybuilding, you have an off season where you're packing in mad calories and you're trying to put on size. I mean, people do that don't bodybuild too, but me personally, I just try to keep as aesthetic as possible. I'm just trying to stay shredded year round if I can, and do what I can diet wise to stay like that. I don't have to get bigger for any shows, or I don't have to be on any stages. So pretty much that's the look that I go for. That's pretty much it for what I do. Alright guys, now we're going to talk some drug talk. So we're going to talk about cycles, what I like to do, and Boston will go into what he likes to do. Me personally, I like to do high amounts of tren and low amounts of testosterone. Probably my favorite cycle would have to be 100 milligrams of Tren-Ace, 100 milligrams of Mastron, and about 500 to 750 milligrams of testosterone a week. I use Arimidex, half a milligram every day. I use Sabre, Cabergoline, Mondays and Thursdays, half a milligram. Sometimes I'll throw EQ in there at 1,000 milligrams a week. I just feel like I get my best gains when the trend is real high and the test is real low. That cycle has worked best for me. Right now I'm currently running higher than 100 milligrams a day just because my receptors are a little fried, and I'm trying to see what kind of results I can get at higher trend. I know everybody's gonna say higher trend, that's higher than 100 milligrams a day is crazy, you're doing too much trend. But my receptors are pretty fried out, so I had to bump it up a notch to see. But I blast and cruise. I'll usually run cycle for about 3 to 4 months, and then I usually come down and just run testosterone around like 350 to 400 milligrams for like 2 months, and then I'll just jump on another blast and mess around with drugs and play around with drugs and see how my body reacts. That's pretty much what I run. I don't get on stage and compete, so I'm just trying to keep the dry look and stay the best looking I can, try to keep the beach look year round. That's just what I do personally.
And I'm big on like switching compounds always. Like I switch, whether I'm in off season or pre-contest. Pre-contest, you're always, 8 weeks out, you're always going to be on your Tren, your mask, your Winstrol, your DHT drugs that are going to really dry you out. But I don't really want to get into pre-contest drugs because the majority of the people that are watching this are not contest bodybuilders, and I'm trying to stray away from that route myself. But the best gains for me, honestly, like you said, Tren's going to be your best steroid. It's an all-purpose steroid. You're going to put on lean mass, you're going to stay leaner, harder, stronger, all the above. Now, saying that, a good off-season dose for Tren, you could start at 50 every other day, see how you feel, because Tren gives a lot of people heartburn, gives a lot of people indigestion at high doses, so you really want to watch out for that type of stuff. Now, the longer you stay on it, the more your body will get used to it, the more you'll be able to eat on it, so and so, but the effects will be less. So saying that, I like to switch compounds every 6 to 8 weeks. Test always stays in there, but I do like to switch esters. I'll switch from sus to sip to prop. I'll throw a little suspension in there on leg days and back days, whatever it is. I'll always switch that. I always like to keep my tests around double whatever my trend is, but my test dose, I've tried it all. My favorite test dose is probably a gram to a gram and a half. And I'm very estrogen sensitive because when I was younger, I took a lot of pro hormones, and they really fucked my hormones up where, I constantly need to be on anti-estrogen. Even though I got my glands removed, so I can't develop any gynecomastia, I still have to keep my, my anti-estrogens, and always like 1 mg of Arimidex every other day. Closer to a show, I obviously bumped it up. Nolvadex, not needed unless you're getting ready for a show, real close to dry you out. It actually raises prolactin, progesterone levels in the body, so you want to keep that out. Nolvadex is really good for post-cycle, and a lot of people get this confused. They think Nolvadex is an anti-estrogen, which is not. It's a SERM, it's a selective estrogen receptor modulator. It works at the receptor, so they're two different things. So it does not lower estrogen in the body. It prevents gyno from the receptor. But if you already have it and you're trying to get rid of it, letrozole is going to be your best bet for gyno, letro and prami. Prami is a very good anti-progesterone. It's stronger. A lot of people get too many side effects on it though. So a lot of people in off season, which I recommend is cabergoline. Prami, like I said, if you can handle the sides, it's a stronger anti-progesterone. Closer to a show, I use both of them. Right now I'm doing caber about 3 times a week. My trend's kind of high. So I'm always switching compounds. I'm not even really getting into dosages, but you know, if I really wanted to look my best and continue to put on lean gains, lean mass year round, I'll keep the trend steady at 50 mgs every other day at the very least. And then when I want to blast hard, I'll come up to 150 every other day, then maybe 100 every other day. You know, if I'm trying to get ready for an event or want to look good for a certain thing, I'll bring it up. But if you keep, you know, trend at like 50 every other day, you're going to be in an anabolic environment. You'll continue to grow, you'll stay lean, and you stay hard. Now, other than that, I like to switch. You know, EQ for 8 weeks, and then take the EQ out, switch the EQ for MPP, then do MPP for 8 weeks. Then take the, you know, the MPP out. And when I say this, remember guys, my test is always higher. Now I will be experimenting, like you said, with lower test, higher trend. Now closer to a show, guys, I have no problem going lower test, higher trend. Reason being is because, like you said, tests will soften you up, because no matter sometimes how, you know, how much anti-estrogens you take, your estrogen is going to be elevated. You're going to hold more water. So pulling the test back, not completely, but pulling it back like, you know, anywhere from, you know, 100 prop every other day or 150 prop every other day, whatever it might be, just pulling it back and bringing the trend. Like 3 weeks out from my show, my trend was higher than my trend. I mean, my bad, my test was lower than my trend. I was doing probably about 800 to 900 tests and probably about 1,400 trend. I was doing 200 every day at that point. And I was mixing 3 different esters. I was doing Tren Hex, Tren Acetate, and Tren Enanthate all in one. Not the blends, guys. Stay away from blends. You don't really know what you're pulling out. I like to pull out from the, you know, the actual compound itself that's been brewed. So keeping it that, keep it simple. Always change compounds. Don't stay on the same shit for the whole year. You know, you need to, you know, pull out the EQ, switch in for Primo. You know, pull out, if you want to go in a hard nut phase, let's say you took test and Deca to put on some size and you blow it up and you want to do a little hardening nut phase. You know, pull the Deca, add some Primo in there, add some Winstrol, add some NPP. You know, always switch compounds. Don't just stay on the same drug. So that's basically my thing. Keep the test a gram and a half if you're trying to put on muscle. Switch the compounds. Everything should be half the test. You should never, you know, MPP in my opinion, you should never do more than like 600 a week, more than 150 every other day. There's no need. EQ, I wouldn't go any higher than 800 and stuff like that. But the main thing, guys, is don't let your body get accumulated to one thing. Always switch it up. So that's my advice on the subject.